Apple to trade higher. The stock right now is up 5%. Taiwan Semiconductor is trading higher. All these companies are trading higher under the idea that they're not getting tariffed, but they are going to get tariffed. And right now, the White House is looking at a new category, a category of national security products, Mike. So the president clarified it was important to get the clarification because there's still tariffs in place, just not 145%.
Yeah, look, there's definitely still a cloud of uncertainty around these sorts of products because they do have huge implications not only for national security but for the overall GDP of our economy, and we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot while at the same time rebalancing global trade. I think this back and forth, this confusion that I feel after reading about this all weekend long is definitely part of the strategy in keeping the other side guessing to what's going on. But who'd have thought within a week and a half that one person could reorganize the entire world of trade almost instantaneously? Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a short break and come. Yeah, look, they are gasping for air. A poll came out last week. It was aired on CNN, of all places, about how the working class voters are tied with President Trump between Democrats and Republicans for the first time in almost forever. And when you hear these things out of Democrats, look, all they're doing is battling to win news cycles. There is no substance. There is no issues. They're getting killed everywhere. And as bad as these tariffs have been for the markets over the last 2 weeks, they're enormously popular with the working class people of this country. Those in the swing states like, I don't know, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, states that are required to win a presidential election. This is super popular with what you would traditionally call swing voters, but are working class people that typically stay home during major elections that got up and voted for Donald Trump. Yeah. There is a permanent shift going on between the Democrat, from those voters historically voting Democrat to voting Republican. That's and the Democrats have absolutely nothing to offer them. But it's a good point because President Trump delivered a diversified audience in that November election. It includes Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So we'll see. Cheryl, thank you for that. Let's get to the exciting What is bro culture? Sorry. Bro culture. Sorry. What is bro culture? Bro culture is, like men, tough men. Bro, I can just tell you, bro culture does not involve being a chameleon liberal that goes along with every single fad of the moment. Gavin Newsom is a more successful version of Beto O'Rourke. It'll never happen in a million years. And look, the fact that Stephen Smith is on a Sunday news show talking about running for president tells you exactly where the where the Democrat Party is at the moment. They have no one. They have no issues, right? If only Republicans in Congress could get their act together and cut spending, they could put themselves in a position to where they have a 50-year run of a majority like the Democrats had from the late 1930s to the early 1990s. Okay, the problem is not Donald Trump. The problem is not his rhetoric. The problem is not his tariffs. It's the fact that Republicans in Congress and in the Senate have a general disdain for their base and will not govern the way the voters they want. They will only answer to their donors. And if you can close that gap, okay, you're going to be running against Stephen A. Smith in 4 years, which will be a disaster for the Democrats. You think it'll be a disaster? Unmitigated. Look, Stephen A. Smith is there for entertainment. He's not even a serious sports commentator. He's there to throw out bombastic lines about why this happened or why that might happen. He is entertaining. I like him. If he's your candidate for president, okay, the Democrat Party, the party of the most powerful people in America, the actual party of the billionaires, it says everything you need to know about where they are. Unbelievable. Liz, how about that picture of... Yeah, look, we saw that from Broadcom last week. I think you're going to hear about massive buybacks coming this quarter because, look, even though we are seeing a somewhat slowing economy and there are all these recession calls, there still is a tremendous amount of strength amongst, the NASDAQ 100, the top companies in the S&P 500. They are doing extraordinarily well. Okay, where that comes in with analyst estimates, I tend to think we're going to get a little bit of a beat this quarter. I think we're in the high sevens for growth. We'll probably beat that. It's all going to come down to the guidance and they go forward. But I can see these massive buyback authorizations and announcements coming in this quarter to back backstop a lot of these stocks. So that is the huge headline out of this Goldman. That is a massive number, $40 billion buyback.
It really is. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think is another reason this stock is on the move and lifting a lot of boats. Dow Industrial's up 1.1% now, 460 points higher. NASDAQ's up almost 2%, 347 points higher. But, Mike, how about AI? I mean, China unveiling an $8.2 billion artificial intelligence funding project to strengthen its domestic AI industry and reduce reliance on U.S. semiconductor firms like NVIDIA and Broadcom, they claim. No, look, this is more subsidies is what this is. Investors are looking at AI stocks this morning, given the fact that, last night even though there was some confusion, we know that some of these all the semiconductor machines are not going to be subject to the 145% tariff, but instead a 20% fentanyl tariff. You've been a big proponent of AI investments. Do you still own NVIDIA?
Yeah, absolutely. And NVIDIA has gotten extremely cheap throughout this and throughout the last 12 months. I mean, last July, the stock was at $140. Okay, we are at close at 110. We'll see where we open and finish today. But the company makes a tremendous amount of money, way more money now than they did, 6 months ago. And what you're hearing is that there is a 15 to 1 demand to supply order relationship right now. So for every chip they sell, there's demand for 15. So part of the reason why China is subsidizing and they're looking for alternatives is they can't get their hands on NVIDIA chips, and they'll never be able to own the latest and greatest chips that NVIDIA comes out because there'll be export restrictions by the United States to do. We're doing everything in our power to keep China behind. China's being smart, and what they'll do is instead of waiting for a Microsoft or a Google or an Amazon to build a data center, they'll have the government build a data center, and all these companies feed into it and feed off of it so they can get, maximize their limited resources to be able to compete with the U.S. However, we have a strong advantage. We will continue to be there, even though you see things like DeepSeek, which is just a rip-off of a few versions ago of OpenAI. This is going to be really interesting to watch from an investor standpoint, from a tech nerd standpoint, but also for the future of our country and for the future of our economy. It's essential that we win this race.
Yeah, and by the way, this is a holiday shortened week, right, Ryan? I mean, the market point sitting at a level of 4.4%. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett just with me moments ago, telling me 100% he does not expect a recession this year. He said 100%. The White House also mulling whether a tariff deal rollout should be one country at a time or one big bundle of countries at a time. That's how many countries they're dealing with right now in terms of doing deals on tariffs. So we'll be watching that. We got a market that is rallying, and we are talking with the newly minted U.S. ambassador to Israel coming up. Let me get your thoughts, Mike, on what you just heard from NEC Director Kevin Hassett.
Him on the no recession. I think we're definitely going to have a negative quarter of GDP in the first quarter due to all the gold imports. There's a kind of a run on the bank to import as much gold as possible to either front run tariffs or to bet against the U.S. dollar to own the physical commodity. There's a lot of manipulation that goes on in those markets. And so I think it has more to do with that. But to see our economy go through a broad-based slowdown throughout the rest of the year, I'm just not seeing it. And to harp on what we were talking about a week ago today, this was the largest overreaction of markets I've ever seen in my entire career. We were talking about this a week ago. Last week, the S&P was up almost 6%. The NASDAQ was up over 7%. I think we're going to recover a lot of the ground that we gave up. It's just a matter of where do we go from here, because there is a bit of a cloud of uncertainty over everything. But as it pertains to these trade deals, okay, we are going to win every single one of these negotiations. And why? It's because our exports, I don't want to say they're meaningless to our economy, but they're small. When you remove Boeing tariffs and defense systems, it's only 5% of our GDP versus like a 40 in Germany. So I think it's going to look pretty good for us.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you on that overreaction, Mike. We're going to take a break and then talk with